let's get to the meat of symbol imagery and concept imagery. It's my theory that imagery is a part of the language processing spectrum. So if you look over here on dyslexia, these are the students that have difficulty with decoding. And these are the students that have difficulty with comprehension. So here's word attack, here's word rec, here's paragraph reading, and of course comprehension. We're going to look at two different students and talk about them. We're going to make our way before the end of the presentation to hyperlexia and autism, and we're going to have a video clip of a father talking about his child who has been diagnosed with autism. So first of all, if you look at this student I've talked about endlessly, and I'm only going to talk about him just a little bit right now, this is a student that I saw that came to me when he was in 10th grade, and his testing profile looked like this. His oral vocabulary was very high. His ability to follow oral directions was very high, but he was reading at a 2.2 level in word attack, a 5.1 level in word recognition, and 5.6 grade level, these are all grade levels, in paragraph reading. However, his reading comprehension was right around this level. If he could decode it at all, he could understand it. But if his mother read it to him, he could completely understand it. So if we're looking at comprehension as what we all know we want to get from this pipeline, we talked about its oral language comprehension and written language comprehension. So because he had difficulty decoding, which was the one that you're sure he had difficulty with? Was it oral language comprehension or written language comprehension? Yes, he had difficulty over here. But if his mother read it to him, he could pass the test if he could read the words in the test well enough to pass it. So his weakness was in what we call phonological awareness, but it was also in symbol imagery. And I think we need to talk a little bit about symbol imagery. It's the sensory ability to create mental representations for sounds and letters. So in Lance's case, he could look at stream and say steam and not know that something wasn't working. What's wrong with, if he looks at stream, what's his error if he says steam? What did he do wrong? He left out a letter. Did he leave out the S? No. He left out the R. And so years ago when I would talk about Lance, people would say, well, he didn't see the letter R. Well, that's not the case. You could say, Lance, what letters do you see? And he'd say S-T-R-E-A-M. And then you'd say, what's the word? And he would say steam. Now, he had weak phonological awareness, so he couldn't judge that he had left out the R. But he also had weak symbol imagery in that he couldn't see those letters. If your symbol imagery is good, watch what happens. If I put this out here and you're Lance and you read that as glap, you probably conjured up some sort of a mental representation that said, whoops, stuck in an L. If you read as gasp, you have some mental representations that come up and say, what? What'd you do? Stuck in an S. That's right. So this symbol imagery is a very quick way to judge if you're wrong or right. But we didn't know it, by the way, when we were working with Lance. We did not know about that. And this is what happened. Lance made great gains, and students like Lance made great gains in phonological processing and word attack. But they were not global readers. When I last saw Lance, he had gained from a 2nd grade to a 10th grade level in word attack. And he could read now, he could sound out the words in his history book where he had been flunking. But it took him so much time to do that because he was not a global reader that he hated to read. So too often what we found is that they had difficulty, and Lance was one of those, retaining sight words. His orthographic processing did not automatically improve with his phonological processing. Also, we saw that our students had phonological processing that was too slow. They would have to think too much, check their mouth to make sure that they had sounds instead of just conjuring up an image the way I was just showing you. And this slowness in their processing caused them to guess at words. And what do you think they did to their comprehension? You can all talk. Twin Cities, you can talk with all those people. If you're having to guess at words, what's happening to your comprehension? Yes. That's right. So let's test your symbol imagery right now. There's a word for you to look at, and I'm going to take it away and I'm going to ask you some questions. What was the fourth letter you saw? All of you? Yes. Okay. All right. Let's do another one. Let's do it at the multi-syllable level. There you see it. Now, tell me the third letter you pictured. R. Okay. And I could talk to you, I could say, take out the R, and what would the word say? And we can fool around with your symbol imagery. And the reason I'm talking to you about that is that symbol imagery, if it's intact, is a very quick way to self-correct. Right? Well, that wasn't enough for us. We thought, well, we better devise a test. We better find out if this is right since we were seeing it in treatment. And this just shows some intercorrelations between some tests. I'm not going to talk about all of these. This is a phonological test. This is a phonological test. This is a phonological test. And here's a symbol imagery test. This is word rec, word attack, word rec, spelling. These are paragraph reading tests here. And what you see here is that if, when you look at correlations, anything between 0.5 and 0.69 is a good correlation. So if you look over here at our phonological test, these are good correlations. But what's interesting about this is that these are stronger, being able to conjure up images. And where this is particularly stronger is in fluency and reading accuracy, stronger in all of them, but stronger in what we think are really important aspects of reading. Stronger in paragraph reading right here. So that's good, but we better look at some predictive qualities of that test. And so we ran what are called multiple regressions. I could take you back to that slide and we could talk a lot about how to run these stats. But we ran multiple regressions and we said, of these tests, an N of 949, how does symbol imagery predict? And that's very strong, 0.74. So if we looked at it visually, where you plot them on graphs, the more it lines up here, the more highly predictive compared to a phonological test. I'm just going to run through these quickly. Here's reading accuracy, being able to read in a paragraph. Check out that. Here's reading fluency, being able to read paragraphs quickly. This is the numerical, but look at the plot. So we thought for sure we were on the right track, and then we decided we would analyze their decoding instruction. So this was the least amount of symbol imagery, more, and this was the most. And it shows out of an N of 793 that we were indeed on the right track with putting Pavio's theory of verbal and nonverbal into practice in decoding instruction. So you look over here, reading rate, reading accuracy, reading fluency, and the big one, reading comprehension. The students did the best when we gave them the most instruction with imagery for decoding. Got it? All right. So let's move on to reading comprehension then. Does reading comprehension require this different type of imagery? We're going to look at that. Is it just a matter of oral vocabulary and or fast contextual reading? And can reading fast or oral vocabulary account for all the weaknesses in reading comprehension? We're going to look at a lot of data. Can you show me Edwin? Edwin is a young man that we saw, I believe, in our San Francisco center. And he came forward to talk about, we've got a lot of tape on him, but he came forward to talk about what it was like for him in school. He had dropped out of college and went back and finished. Now we haven't seen him for 2 or 3 years. He's going to describe his comprehension problem.
Sometimes things made sense to me and sometimes they didn't. And when they made sense, it felt really good, but if it didn't make sense, I always felt sort of behind and I felt left out from like all the rest of the students. And just sometimes I felt like when I asked questions to teachers that the other students, it embarrassed me because the other students seemed to understand it better than I could, and I felt singled out.
Okay. It seemed a little bit fuzzy to us here in San Luis Obispo, but what he basically was saying, that it wasn't just even reading comprehension, it was even trying to listen to answers when the teacher was talking in class.